Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 262 of Manage the Wild. I'm your host, Nick Madsen. I thought back to a story today that happened to me back in 2015, 2016. We found ourselves taking a class, and in this class, we had to go to this facility, this lab, where they pulled samples from animals that had died. And we did a full necropsy, and the professor was there, and the doctor who was performing the necropsy was walking us through as they took a mule deer. At the time, I was working for wildlife, and so I was the one who brought in the deer. We brought in the deer, split it open, open it up, and as he's doing this, the doctor who's performing the necropsy stops and he says, "Hey, it's pretty warm in here, pretty moist environment. It's going to get really smelly. Some of you are going to feel like you're going to faint. And it's okay. Just, it is what it is. If you feel yourself before you get to the point of fainting, just step outside." And at that time in that class, we had a lot of people who had never been around an animal who had been gutted before. Most of these people were from back east or on the West Coast and hadn't really ever been involved in hunting. Most of them were vegetarians, but they got into the wildlife degree to help with and work with animals. So as he's going along, he splits the dough open and starts taking the contents, the stomach out, and places the stomach on one tray and takes the liver and places on another and the heart. He's separating all these things, and a kid starts talking, and he sounds really funny. And we all look over at him just to see him crumple to the floor. And I thought, oh my gosh, people need to be exposed to different things. Well, today I showed up to feed the elk, and there's been an elk that has been laying in its own little area for quite some time. Hasn't really got up and moved. Each day we go and check on it, and today it was unable to pick up its head. I'd been told that there was an elk with a broken leg, I don't know if it was front or back, but it was a broken leg. So we were thinking it was this one, and animals do fine missing a limb. They'll eventually make it through. In the area like we're in Utah, they don't have, there are predators, coyotes, there are black bears, and there are mountain lions, but we don't have wolves. So it's not unheard of to see a three-legged elk for a bull. I saw one for like 5 years in a row above my parents' house. So you see these all the time. So we were watching this cow, and she finally got to the point where she couldn't stand up, and we checked on her for the last 4 days, and she was unable to pick her head up. So I contacted the biologist yesterday and told the biologist what I was seeing, and he said that we're going to have to go and euthanize it. So we euthanized the elk, and when I was feeding elk today, I knew I was going to have to give kind of a tour, but there's an elementary school that brings its kids up, fourth and fifth graders. Next month it'll be sixth graders, but they come up and they help feed the elk. We take these square bales, put them on a trailer, and they break off flakes, and they're constantly tossing the flakes out so the to feed the elk. And it's their chance to interact with wildlife and to see all the different things that's going on. The teacher who is there runs a STEM program. He's phenomenal. He does a very good job of talking about all the different things, habitat, wildlife, and all that. And then after they're done feeding elk, they go up into the classroom portion, and then they also get to do a bit of cross-country skiing. So I knew I had those guys coming up today, and they were going to feed. So I moved the elk off to a different location, ended up pulling the collar off the animal, and took all the data, sent it down to the biologist. And because the elk didn't have a broken leg, obviously something else was going on. As I checked over the body of the animal, it was emaciated, definitely lost some muscle mass. The bone or the backbone was sticking up pretty far. And so you can tell this cow is really skinny. The biologist determined that we need to take it to the lab to get tested, find out what's wrong with it. So the kids get up and I put them on the trailer. The teacher puts them on the trailer and we go and feed. And as we were feeding, I was talking to the teacher and let him know that, hey, we euthanized this elk. It's over in this area. And I wasn't opposed to them seeing it, but I didn't know if the kids could handle it because I'm picturing this kid passing out at Utah State. And the teacher or the professor let me know that these kids should all be able to handle it. And we had a very good discussion about the difficulties of wildlife. As they stood around this elk, we showed them the collar, showed them the ear tags that these elk get when they are handled by humans. And if they die, you can call in with this tag. Sometimes the tags are associated with, like you had to chemically tranquilize them. And so we talked about all the different things, and they were okay that the animal had passed. And it was such an interesting moment seeing college kids who had never been around any of this type of atmosphere before to these kids who were getting exposed routinely to wildlife and just the harshness and the reality of wildlife. There was so much, there's been such a difference this year witnessing these kids as they come up every week and do these different things, that it's such an important part for me that these kids be exposed to these things early so they know exactly how life is. It's been awesome that I can take my boy up to help feed elk and he gets exposed to that. He does work on a farm, and as he's getting old enough, he'll have the chance to drive a swather. But it's important that these kids get involved in wildlife and just see what wildlife go through, what wildlife management is about, and what's happening versus what they're hearing from other people who are not necessarily involved. And just the exposure is important to understand just all aspects of wildlife. So that is my note. Get these kids involved early so they can look. Maybe you don't want them to go into wildlife field. That's fine. Nobody wants to take that low of pay. But get them involved in wildlife, help them understand so they can go into conservation when they can donate time and help out these different groups and get involved with these groups that are trying to benefit wildlife one way or another. All right, guys, have a great day. Stay wild.